Hi, kia ora, and welcome to the Creative Matters podcast, where we have really inspiring conversations with artists living in and from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm your host, Mandy Yakic. Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. This week I'm speaking with Sefton Rani, who is the Parehuia Artist in residence at McCahon House, which is in Titirangi, west of Auckland. And he's been there from the beginning of January and just has a couple more weeks, finishing up at the beginning of April 2025. Sefton describes himself as a maker who uses paint as his primary material. Based in Auckland, he is a visual DJ who mashes up industrial materials with Cook Island narratives to create modern Pasifika art. McCahon House has 3 residencies a year, each of 3 months duration, and they're available to outstanding professional artists. Artists receiving the residency live and work in the purpose-built French Bay house with an attached studio. I met Sefton in the studio this week, which is a beautiful studio, by the way, to have a chat about the residency, being an artist in residence, the work he is creating over this 3-month period. We also talked about how he's been inspired by past events and his surroundings, his thinking and development, and of course we go into his incredible creative process. This is the second time Sefton has been a guest on the podcast. I'm very lucky. You might like to go back to episode 73, which we recorded in March of 2023, to hear more about Sefton's life and art practice. I'm sure you're going to really love this episode, and I felt incredibly privileged to be in the studio with Sefton looking at his work. Just a heads up, at the beginning when I'm saying hello, kia ora to Sefton, his microphone wasn't switched on properly, which was totally my fault. But after all my little welcomes, he appears, so it's all good. Kia ora, Sefton. So lovely to see you again. It's an incredible honour to be here in your studio and seeing some of your work, which has completely blown me away and moved me. So yeah, very much looking forward to hearing all about it. If you could talk to us a little bit about the Parehuia residency and how you applied and how you got in and why you wanted to do it. And then we can start talking about what you've actually created here.
So I'm, by my count, I think the 53rd artist that's come through this residency, which began, I think it was around 2007, somewhere around there. There's 3 artists per year that are lucky enough to get this opportunity. And I'm the first one for 2025. The process to come in here is every year around May. There's a call for applications, and there's 2 questions to answer, about 400 words a question, and that in your bio and some images of your work, etc. And you put your application in and you cross your fingers. For me, the key is it was the 4th time that I had applied, so 4th time lucky. But just trying to tighten up the application each time, and just really trying to hone in on exactly what did I want to do here and why, and really understanding that. And as far as why I'd want to do a residency, I guess there's just there's a whole bunch of reasons going into it that you think you want to do it. When you actually get here, you realize that some of that distills, and some of the reasons that you originally wanted to do it kind of change maybe. But I guess that's the beauty of having 3 months in a gorgeous studio like this that's big, where you get to distill, you get to look out at the forest canopy and have a chance to create.
Yeah, and it's such an incredible spot. It's in Titirangi in West Auckland, and as you said, it's in amongst the trees. So there's a house where the residency takes place, which is stunning, designed by Pete Bosley, really beautiful design. And then next door is the original McCahon cottage, which is now a museum. So this has been formed by the McCahon Trust. Can you tell us a little bit about the connection with Colin McCahon?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, his house that I think he was living in there from 1953 to 59, I guess is the root and the essence of the residency. We're lucky enough to have keys so we can access that space anytime while we're here, and I guess just to try and understand maybe some of his thinking. It definitely was something I was conscious of, thinking about some of the works that he created while he was there on his deck, the Northland panels, or some of the Cubist works of the Kauri and things like that. So they were things that I kind of was thinking of before I came here, and being in this space now, suddenly you have those light bulbs where you understand exactly what inspired him to make some of those works while he was physically in this location.
And so it's kind of honouring his process and his practice and him as a person to have this trust created. How did it actually develop, do you know?
Honestly, I don't know that deep into the history of how it's come together, but you know, obviously there's a lot of people that have come together to create, you know, the whole environment and the ecosystem that kind of surrounds it. And, you know, certainly when you're here as an artist for 3 months, it's not just about making work for 3 months, you know, because you can punch stuff out anywhere you happen to be. It's, I guess, the wraparound of you know, the people that are involved, you know, Jude, Simran, Tamara, to my main contacts to, I guess, just help make sure I get that wraparound support and I can do what I need to do and to continue to grow.
And you must feel the influence of McCahon just being here.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a New Zealand artist, you feel that influence anyway, you know, and it's how to get out from under that shadow, especially if you like things like text or, you know, landscapes and things. But yeah, I mean, I was conscious of it, but also making sure that you don't get trapped into that web of, you know, either being subservient to what he did or overly influenced by the work that he did.
Yeah, it's just a fine balance, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and it's something I've been very conscious of. Like like I said, I looked at a lot of images before I came here, and while I've been here, I was reading a book that basically was a whole, like, I can't remember now, 40 years of letters where he was to and fro, you know, and I was reading specifically the parts when he was in this house and when he first moved into it, what were the things that were his impressions and how was he reacting to it, and just, yeah, I guess just putting it into my head is a bit of flavour that maybe came out in the work later on.
Yeah, so interesting. And so coming to do a residency like this in this very special place, and it's a real honour, and congratulations for, you know, winning this opportunity. Coming in here, did you actually have an exact plan what you wanted to make, or some sort of overarching idea, or how did you approach your practice for this 3 months that you're here?
I mean, I guess the first thing I'd say is it's a privilege to be here, and certainly I'm, I guess, honoured to have this opportunity. But you know, there's a number of people that help get me here. You know, whether they're friends, artists, collectors, you know, people that encourage me and kept me going over the last 12, 13 years. You know, especially over the last 2 post-cyclone. So I mean, while it's me in the studio, I'm kind of carried by them on their shoulders, you know, so, you know, I have to acknowledge all of them. But as far as the work that I had in mind, it's kind of this loose thing where you think you do. And my expectation is probably most artists have an idea of what they want to do when they come here, and then it kind of shifts, you know, based on either environment or maybe how their practice has shifted since they put in their application. A number of things. But for me, I wanted to focus on creating rather than producing. So the whole time I've been here, if I've felt like I've gone towards a safe path, I've straight away kind of nipped it in the bud. If I've had work that felt like it's nice and I would like to go a little bit further with it, but I'm afraid of breaking it, then I'll push it. And if it breaks, too bad. Like, that's what this time is. It's to make mistakes. It's to learn. It's to, just challenge my practice or challenge myself to be better. Part of that is, I've came here with 6 2-meter by 1 meter panels to form a full work that's 2 meters by 6. And having never worked in a scale anywhere close to that, just to try and challenge myself to what does that feel like to make that, and take advantage of the studio space where I can hang something that large and actually be able to see it in one space, instead of having to break it up if you're in a smaller studio and never having a real understanding of how does that work.
Yeah, and this piece is utterly phenomenal. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes. It's very, very, very powerful. And I can imagine just having that idea of the 6 panels to start with was quite a good starting point. It was just a place to start, even though you don't necessarily know what you're going to create. But I love the way the work has brought in elements of things that you've done before. So it very much feels like a Sefton Rani work, but you've really pushed it and taken it somewhere incredibly special.
Yeah, it's I walked in here with these big panels, and I was for the first couple of weeks I just kind of kept on looking at them, going, what kind of hole have I dug myself into? But I guess work makes work, and once you start playing, they kind of come together on their own sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was, the last 2 years have been difficult, post cyclone for various reasons. This is the 8th house that I've lived in the last 2 years. This is the 5th studio that I've set up in that period. So there's been a lot of changes in my practice just to accommodate all of that, resources, both financial and physical and everything else. So
emotional.
And this is, I guess the theory was to try and consolidate all of those learnings into my practice or into a body of work as part of this residency. And this work is called Gabrielle. So it's named after the cyclone. That was a massive pivot for me and my wife, and I guess and for more people beyond us in New Zealand at the time. But this is the work that for me captured all of that particular day when it hit us, and the 2 years after. And to be honest, apparently, like Parehuia, she was a healer, and this feels like the last work that I need to do about the cyclone. And I guess it's just cleansed me of all that past energy and everything else, and I can kind of move forward from it.
And from me coming from a community of Muriwai that was so badly hit by the cyclone as well, I think that's why it made me feel so emotional, because it is really reminding me of destruction, but also of rebuilding. It really speaks to me and takes me back to that time. Could you describe the overall work and then talk to us about how you created it?
So I mean, the work is, I guess, to storyboard it, it's my focus on what that initial 24, 36 hours during and post the cyclone kind of was to me as an emotion, I guess, for want of a better description. And it's a work that, if you treat it as a landscape, with a bird's eye view looking down on the land over the Waitakares, over Piha, and then sort of beyond the cyclone, the days that you're in. There's kind of some optical images which, if you look at it in person, you get that kind of eye flicker, but I'm not sure how that sort of comes out in photographs, but it's kind of added into the destruction. So it's, roughly that's kind of what it's about. Physically, there works on plywood panels. Each panel is 2 meters by 1 meter. I've got a build-up of plywood on top of that, which Daniel from Frames by Daniel makes my custom boards, and he gave me all the offcuts that normally would have just gone into the skip and into the rubbish. So lucky to be able to kind of upcycle those, but they're with adhesive added to the panels, which kind of add this topographical kind of feel. And then the works have been gridded. They've been drilled into each of the square grids. Per panel, if it's fully drilled, there's 800 holes per panel. I've then come in with skill saws, with hand chisels, with angle grinders to do what is my version of contemporary carving over them. And then they've been burnt with a heat gun that gets to about 1300 degrees, and then they've been scrubbed back with wire brushes and washed down with water and a scrubbing brush, I guess is the vague way of describing it. But yeah, each panel's designed to kind of stand on its own, but also designed to actually, it's one work. And so one panel kind of leads on from the other.
And you wouldn't ever sell them separately,
no.
would you? Yeah.
No, it's interesting when we were hanging them and when we were playing with them as the panels kind of got finished one by one, we tried different orders of the panels. Anything other than how they sit now, they don't make sense. And to sell a single panel would destroy the rest. So they have to be one work. Yeah,
definitely. And they do remind me a little bit of Godwit Kuaka, the long panels, the rough hautili work. Not that it looks like it visually, but that idea of a little bit of a journey through from the first panel to the end. Are you thinking of it like that?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to go to the hautili retrospective down in Christchurch, and it was there a couple of years ago. So when I was making this, I was thinking about if I had a retrospective in 50 years and I had major works, kind of what would those works need to feel and be. So I did have a concept of that, but also thinking about McCahon works like, say, the Wake or the Northland panels, or some of those panels that he created that were to do with the soul travelling up the west coast before they kind of left New Zealand. Like, I never understood that until I went up to Cape Reinga after my father passed, and then I kind of understood those panels in the same way that, having been here now, I understand more his cubist Kauri kind of painting. So I was mindful of a journey as I walked through or walked along these panels, just like that time period when I made them was a journey as well.
Yeah. And the strong connection that you have with Piha, but that's where you were living when the cyclone hit. You have represented Piha in an abstract kind of way and introduced the one bit of colour, red. The way you've captured Piha and the sort of energy and force and passion of that place is quite powerful. Can you talk to us about that part of the panel?
That second panel is actually everyone's favourite. So, you mentioned would I sell it separately? I think that's the one that would sell probably 10 times over. But, that panel itself, it's one of probably only 3 of them that actually have paint on them. The rest are just the charcoal from the burning and the wood. But even though it looks like quite a raw painting, like I still have my influences in it, like I talked about McCahon, etc., but, also international influences and things that I've had. So there's little bits kind of trapped in there. So thinking about the Great Wave of Kanagawa and by Hokusai, and, there's I talk about wabi-sabi and that beauty of imperfection, which is kind of what a lot of these panels are. So some of it is you're creating the structure and the wood and booby trapping it, so some of it will purposefully kind of fall apart or drop off or partly burn, but also part of it is trusting in your knowledge of the process, the knowledge of how you add intense heat to not only the panels but the paint, so that you get these different, I guess, chemical reactions or things like that to the paint. So some of it, if you look closely, you'll see some of the paint just kind of dissolves and you see some of the underpainting of the red through the white. Some of it, as the paint kind of heats and vaporizes, you get these kind of metallic sheens at the top. Some of it, if you look around the edges of the red, I don't know exactly what happens, but in my mind, probably what's happening is the heat vaporizes the pigment that's in that paint, and then it re-solidifies as a gas, and so you get these almost kind of smudges around the edge of the red that, again, I know that that's going to happen, but exactly how, a bit of it's, sort of chance, and some of it's kind of prayer, and some of it's kind of knowledge, so it's all kind of meshed into one big thing.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. And in true Sefton Rani style, the way you work is so evident in your final works. And, just for example, the way you've included some of those ply panels which have paint that you've used for another part of the work. I love the way you do that. And it's so, you can kind of feel like you're part of the process almost, but then it also has that sort of completeness.
Yeah, I guess for me it's about not trying to hide anything. Like everything of how this has been made, from the grids to the materials I use, it's all there. So technically someone could, if they wanted to, create this themselves. And I like to show that. Quite often, people will want to touch them, and, even though in the gallery space you're not supposed to physically interact with the work, but I encourage, people to touch these things and to smell them. There's that strong smell of the charred wood and things like that. So it's all part of, the experience. I don't want the work to be something that you need strong art history in to understand or to be able to unpick. A 4-year-old could come in and quite happily put their fingers in the holes and engage with it at that level, or a blind person could walk in, smell the works, physically touch them and interact with them as well. So it's, I'm conscious that art should be for everyone, and that, I don't come from that academic university background, and that I'm self-taught. So I want to create work that's for everyone, and that everyone can enjoy at whatever level they want to. Yeah,
so good. And it's very accessible in that way. And the grids are really interesting, the way you have left some of the pencil lines where you've ruled up the grids, and the lines, kind of carry on through across the panels. They're quite lined up. It's quite mathematical in that way. How do you actually create the holes, and what are you thinking about when you're creating space behind them?
So, I mean, the grid itself, like a lot of my work has the grid in there, because there's so much chance generally kind of put into the work, or intended chance. Without that grid structure for the work to hang on, they could quite easily collapse. And I've heard of references where in battle where there's kind of chaos, after the battle they line up all the dead bodies to try and create structure. And in a work like this where it's it's about chaos and and things falling apart, it kind of gives you that structure to kind of look at. Sorry, I forgot what the second part of the question was.
It was how you created the holes.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, I've got different drill bits that I use, and I spent a lot of time sharpening the drill bits, just the nature of the holes and the thickness of the ply and things. It just surprisingly took such a heavy toll on those metal bits.
Yeah.
And then behind the surface, I put a separate sheet of ply on the back as well. So internally, you have everything painted a real matte black. So you have these holes which then lead you through the surface of the painting into a void space behind. So what you're getting is black, but not through the addition of pigment, but through the absence of light. And it's that kind of void space, that nothingness, that, from I guess the aftermath of that cyclone, kind of what people were feeling. But also it's that kind of, that space afterwards of nothingness, of uncertainty and things like that, that I was trying to capture.
Yeah. And do you actually burn the holes around the holes? They seem to have sort of a softness.
Yeah, so some of where there's paint applied, there's holes. Those holes have actually been burnt individually, both from the front and from the back, just to make it a bit cleaner. But it's kind of painting, instead of, say, using a stick of charcoal to make your black, you're creating the charcoal and the black on the piece with the torch, and then using that black ring around the black void space hole, then gives you that kind of optical flicker that, especially people that suffer from things like migraines, they just don't like looking at those panels because your eye just can't fix on a certain place.
Yeah, but it's so beautiful, that effect. And then sometimes you've got a little bit of red very subtly coming through those holes, or the panels of the holes. And the overall colour, I mean, it does have a real connection for me to tapa and the colours of tapa, but also just the processes that you have gone through of beating and, scraping and brushing and all of those things that you've applied to this work feels like it's also connecting to that tradition of tapa making.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I see this as a contemporary Pacific work. It's partially carved. It's, I see when I'm using the skill saws that it's just another form of mark making. It's the same as if you were doing tattoo and you were mark making there, or if you're using stencils or rubbings to make tapa, it's just a different way of mark making. And the charcoal's the same as if you're getting black pigment for, tattoo, or for I guess even modern contemporary acrylic paints, it's still a charcoal of some sort. So, I'm conscious of that tonal aspect. There's different shades of brown and black in the work. Some of it's quite matte, some of it's actually quite shiny. But yeah, I mean, I'm conscious of those ochres and those kind of browns and other colours that you would get in tapa, or various carvings or things like that. I guess it's just my way of trying to take what was there in the past and reimagine it into a contemporary urban environment that I grew up in.
Yeah, and it really does that. And bringing the red in, is there any particular reason why the main extra colour was red?
I guess the nature of what the painting's about. So whether it's, the heart's bleeding, or, whether it's sadness, or, I guess the anger of the storm, or things like that, but also, you kind of bring together that black, white and red. That's kind of, at one level, people would see it as, I don't know, mouldy colours, but, also if you go into Europe, they're kind of modernist kind of colours. So I think it's quite a a standard combination to have those together. But specifically, it's more about the emotions that the color red brings to mind when you see it.
Yeah, it really does. And that work, how did you actually end up approaching it? Did you work on all of the 6 panels at the same time, or one panel at a time?
Yeah, I mean, the work kind of evolved between, initially it was going to be one work, and then I thought, if I create something this large, what am I going to do with it? So then this went to maybe I do single panels or, diptychs or something like that. And then I was kind of like, actually, I'm here to push. So it needs to be one work. And I had lots of kind of working ideas in my head that I was kind of sketching out on charcoal, and kind of was but wasn't kind of working. And then I just kind of bit the bullet, made the first panel, and then suddenly it made the other 6 panels make sense. And then they basically just got created at more or less the same time. And the work, I guess the final what you see result basically took a week and a half maybe. And all up it took about 5 weeks, and some of that was just the prep of gluing, waiting for adhesives to dry. And I mean, the drilling of the panels took probably at least a half, 3/4 of a day per panel just to drill them. They just took a long time. And I mean, they're very physical works to make, which I didn't really appreciate so much at the time. But it was kind of a week and a half, 2 weeks of recovery after them, to be honest.
Yeah, I bet.
Because I think the heaviest panel is probably 20 kilos. The whole work is probably about 80. So just taking those back home to burn them, because I can't burn them out here. And sort of having to lean right across the panel to drill the center holes and things. It was interesting. It was interesting to I guess another part to really understand that physicality and that labor involved. And because my practice is, part of it is about the manual labor of migrant labor and Pacific labor in factories, and moving from plantations into industrial factory environments to feed your family. Like I guess I felt that link with the physicality of just the daily grind of drilling holes, or cutting stuff, or just all of that.
Yeah. And you talked to me a little bit about another piece that you've made, another panel, which is the same sized panel, but it's not part of that work. It's a different work. And you feel like this is your final sort of closure and moving on kind of piece from the cyclone. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't realize it at the time. I've done work that previously that was more of, I guess, a reaction to the cyclone. This just felt like closure. I think it, I guess, physically and mentally took a lot out of me, but it just felt like it was done. I didn't need to go there anymore. So I needed an antidote to that. And so this other panel it's actually the big panel's six panels, the smaller one's 12. But each panel's much smaller. The total size it's probably about half, I think. It's 1 meter by 3 meters. But the intention is it'll be a lot lighter, both physically, but the color palette less intense and more looking towards the future and hope and what the next chapter is versus looking back on what was. So it just felt like there needed to be a sense of hope coming out of this, and I guess some new paths for me to follow as I move forward as well.
Yeah, I love that. And what a beautiful way of approaching a residency and having that 3-month period of time where you've kind of taken yourself through a journey, and it's representing the other journey of that 2 years since the cyclone, and then it's kind of resolved, and it feels like it's just been a really cathartic thing for you to work through and then come through the other side and with fresh eyes and like a fresh start almost.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a reset. And yeah, there's key works here that'll come out of my time here. There's a number of studies and different works that I've done that are exploring completely new areas for me. But I was very conscious, probably every couple of days or even every day just review what I'm working on and is it the best use of my time here. And so there's a number of things that I've kind of car parked for future exploration. Like I have a study or some small works that kind of capture the essence of those ideas, and they're things for me to explore sort of beyond now.
So good. How inspiring. And then you showed me some beautiful paint skin works that you made using one of the tables from the studio, which I love. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I mean, when you come to the residency, basically you're given this blank studio space that's it's probably 8 by 5 meters, I guess, in size, and it's got a high roof that's probably 3.5 meters high at its highest. So it's a gorgeous space, and then you have some tables that you can work from and a few chairs and a ladder and bits and pieces. But for me, when I saw those tables, there's a lot of mark making on them from the previous artist. So there's paints, there's bits of tape. You can see where someone's been cutting something up. So there's like score marks in the wood of their cutting. So I saw that as an opportunity to put some of my paint down on top of these tables and then to peel it off, which is basically the way that I create my paint skins. Sometimes it's on glass, sometimes it's on objects, and in this case it's on the table. So the hope was that the paint or the markings that the previous artist had made would be captured in that paint. So the paint skins that you're referring to, the nice hope would be that each of those previous artists had left a little bit of themselves, a mark or maybe even DNA embedded somewhere in that table. And by peeling that paint off and having some of that previous paint or those cuts in that paint, you're capturing the history and the legacy of everything that's been through the studio previously.
Yeah, that's so incredible. And it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful abstract work. But using, that history almost of what's gone on and who's been here is really striking. And you had it on the carpet, I think, drying in the sun, wasn't it? It does actually, we were talking about it, look quite like a beautiful rug, weirdly. It actually suits being on the floor as well as on the wall. Although I can imagine, once you have it framed or hanging in a certain way, it would look incredible on the wall.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key is it's just an abstract work, and there's a little bit of paint there from one of the first works I did when I was in the studio, because I'm working here, so I wanted a bit of my input into that work. But I mean, it's all just random marks, and even though it's not intentionally marked the way that it is, for me, it just feels like it's in perfect balance. Without any intervention from anyone. Yeah,
it's so beautiful, so effective. We're just going to take a very short break for our creative notice board of the week. Salt and Light 3 will be on view at Parnell Gallery from the 1st of April to the 18th of April, with a preview event on Tuesday the 1st of April from 5:30. This joint show brings together the distinctive practices of painters Sarah Langdon and Matt Payne. Their works capture the profound essence of New Zealand's diverse landscapes, with Matt's meticulously detailed depictions of the coastline contrasting strikingly with Sarah's intimate portrayals of volcanic and mountainous forms. Both Matt and Sarah have been my gorgeous guests on the podcast, so you might like to check out their episodes before you view the show. My friend and talented painter Tanya Blong has a show currently on at Muse Gallery in Havelock North. It's called Watches and is a joint show with Zoe Marsden. Watches is a quiet invitation, a moment of stillness between looking and being seen. It is about the beauty found in the spaces between presence and absence. This is such a beautiful show, and I do hope you can also get along to that one, and it finishes on March the 27th. Now back to Sefton. And some of the other works that you've created over this time are really taking a part of this place in different ways. So one example is taking the survey plates and working with those. Can you tell us about that work?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that people talk about when you get that residency is how the space, I guess, has a bearing on the work that's produced, and people talking about how different artists react in different ways to being in the bush or being in the studio. And I wanted to capture something that was of here, that was a place marker. So, when we first got here, just walking around the streets and orientating ourselves, there are, I guess, a couple of bits that I found. I'm someone that's always walking around looking at the ground and picking up screws and washers and things that you kind of find and embedding them in work. And one of the things that I found were there's the square survey markers that I guess that they use to mark out the area. And because I'd left Piha, so it was kind of a marker of place, and so I'd been pushed out from that place. I'm now in this place, and so how do I acknowledge that? So the survey marker was basically thinking about that and how could I use that. So I just covered the thing in paint and peeled them back as what my paint skins are. But in doing that, because it's been out in the weather, you pull the rust from that. So then you start looking at the history or the legacy of that place. Because I'm not taking a cast from it, I'm actually taking it from the object itself. So the text that's on it gets reversed, so straight away it's abstracted. Some of the markings on it, there's kind of these repetitive squares, which are, I guess, mirrored in the larger work that I've done. There's crosses that are part of for some reason, the decoration on the survey marker. Maybe it's X marks the spot, I'm not sure, but they're also not intentionally, but they're in the bigger work that I did. So that was, I guess, the intention behind it, to try and mark that place.
They're just such beautiful works. How do you think you'll frame those or show those?
I mean, some of them I've started putting on to ACM, just to kind of composite aluminium kind of surfaces, and they'll just literally probably hang on the wall, quite flat. Some of them, especially when I use a black paint over them with the rust, if I stand them next to the original metal plate, you can't actually tell which is metal and which is paint. So there's that kind of, that effect of what is it, when they're on the walls. So
yeah, they really do look very metallic. And so you've created, around 40 works probably by the end of it, won't you? Have that many works.
Yeah.
What are you hoping to do with these works after the residency?
Good question. To be honest, some of these I'll probably gift to people that have been supportive to me, through my art career. The big work, I'd, obviously love to have it get some air, to have some eyes on it, to give it a chance to fly somewhere, and in a space where you can approach it from distance, because for some reason people look at paintings and they start walking backwards away from them to get a different perspective on them. So it'd be nice for it to have an opportunity to have something like that happen. I guess in my wildest dreams, I'd love it to go into a really good collection, or to give it an opportunity to sit next to a McCahon or a hotry on the wall somewhere, just to see how they face off against each other, and to see if it's worthy. But yeah, I mean, it's, there's no formal exhibition at the end of this residency, so there's no kind of great unveiling. But I have confidence that the universe will place the larger works where they need to be, and the rest, to be honest, they'll probably be stuck in a cupboard somewhere and pop out at some point in time in the future.
I'm sure. I think we were talking before with Kirsten, your wife, this work feels like a very important work and could be a turning point. I feel like it deserves to be somewhere where it can really be seen by lots of different people, but also valued.
Yeah, I mean, for me, look, the work is the work, right? You just kind of, like every other artist, you go into the studio every day and you embrace the arm wrestle, and you grind, and something comes out at the end of it, and you hope it's worthy of your time, and the reaction to people seeing it in this space. I mean, I'm keeping a running tally. I think 7 have had tears. Probably about 20% of people have goosebumps. So there's something primal that the work's pulling out of people, which, is kind of interesting, I guess. I'm not quite sure what it is.
It must be nice for you to see that kind of visceral reaction.
But to be honest, I think it's nice for the work to see that. Yeah. Like for me, I'm the conduit. For me, the work comes through me, not from me. So, whether it's a universal connection of humanity that these reactions get pulled out of, I don't want to make it sound like a bunch of woo, but people who don't know me, that don't know my work at all, come in and have that reaction. Or they just sit here in silence for a couple of minutes. So it's, it would be nice to just have more eyes on it, to be honest.
Yeah. And you have been opening your studio here at McCahon House.
As part of your time here in the residency, you have like an open studio day that's open to the public.
Right.
But I've also, I've been lucky enough that I've had a lot of people support me. So I've tried to open up the studio as much as I can to give thanks to those who have supported me, or just anyone that's interested in the work, to give them an opportunity to, I guess, see behind the scenes, not just the finished works, but what does the mess look like in the real working studio. So it's, I've welcomed as many people as I can, but also being conscious of the fact I need to make work as well, and things like that. Yeah,
I can imagine it could be tricky if you're kind of in the flow.
Yeah, I guess some of the people, like, I'm inviting, but I've tried to create an environment where there's good energy in the studio, and wanting to invite people in that bring that energy in, that don't just come in here and take energy, but they give as well, so that there's that balance, and as you walk in the studio, the first thing I made here was there was a bit of our old house at Piha that I guess cosmically the week that we moved in here was the week that the house got bulldozed, but there's a bit of the support for the deck that I've got, which I turned into, I was thinking of a po or something like that, a talisman for the studio, but it kind of worked better horizontal at the top of the stairs. So, and then I was thinking about kind of the feng shui of the studio. So, there's the wood element, it's been burnt, so there's the fire. Next to it's a bit of metal that I found in the garden. Next to that's a stone that I found here that's been weathered by water. So you've got the earth and the water elements, and the high ceiling here is kind of the air element. So, trying to get good energy in the studio, but then good energy from the people that come in as well. So it's not that I've been selective, but I only surround myself with good people, and I make sure that I share what I do with them, but I make sure that there's positive energy, especially around the work and the making of the work.
Yeah. Okay, so I'd just love to know, actually, coming into a residency like this, do you feel pressure to create something outstanding?
I guess generally the two questions I kind of ask myself when I just make work anyway is like, why does this have to be made? And so that helps you get to the essence of what am I trying to do. And then the other thing is, once it's made, to try and make it undeniable. That way, you can walk into an environment, see the work. You may or may not like it, but you can't say, yeah, there's something about that. So I guess that's always there anyway. But coming into the residency itself, there's a weight. I guess the lucky thing for me is having had so many moves and studio setups in the last 2 years, it was less of a mental hurdle to come in and set up a new studio outside of my comfort zone. But the weight of the McCahon residency, the weight of the previous artists that have been through here, I was surprised, especially the first few days, you feel that. And then there's that expectation of, I need to make sure that I do this right. Not only for, the trust and the McCahon board, but to honour those that have given energy in this space previously, and, for all the people that have supported me on my journey for the last 13 years that I've been here full time. Like, I've got here on the backs of all these, wonderful friends, artists, collectors, supporters, family. So you want to honour that in some way too, so that they're like, yeah, you know what, thank you. And because of your support, this came out of it. So really conscious that I wanted to create, I wanted to push the boundaries. I kind of wanted to make a signature work of some sort, and that's why I turned up here with 6 meters of panels to make something. I didn't know what, but you just want to do it right. You don't want to come in here and treat it like as a 3-month Airbnb over summer next to French Bay. Like, you could do that and still get a lot from the residency and the time that you spend here. But I am typically in the studio 6-7 days a week. I'm working 8 to 12 hours a day anyway. I don't really know how to let up. So I don't think even if I wanted to take it easy here, I couldn't. I think I've had one whole day where I actually didn't do anything art related. Otherwise, every day I've either been in the studio or just doing bits and pieces. Yeah. So, but that's normal. But definitely want to come out of here with something that, I feel like I did what was supposed to be done.
Yeah, but I can imagine it would have been quite a pressure in a way. And did that sort of affect your actual creativity at all, do you think? Or did you just not let that get to you?
I think the pressure probably, if anything, pushed me on to make this big work, for example. You mentioned my wife, Kirsten. It's like she's been my biggest supporter. And when I first decided that I was going to try and make this artist game a thing full time, like, she didn't even blink. She supported me from day one. She trusted in me and what I guess my work ethic as much as anything else, and my tenacity. And then having her here, she knows my work and my output better than anyone. So, it's always nice to have someone to say, "Oh, come and have a look at this." And she is perfect at reading what needs to be said at any given time. So sometimes I think it's finished or almost finished, and she'll walk in and say, "Oh, that's a good start," and then other times she'll be like, "Yeah, maybe just let sleep on it and see what happens the next day."
Mm.
And I also don't listen to her. She might say, "Leave it, it's finished," and she'll come in the next day and say, "Where's that white one I like?" And it's like, "Oh, it's painted
gone.
black now." Yeah, it's gone. But yeah, it's just been nice, and I've been lucky. I've had, a couple of my good artist friends, Andy Lalesiwa and Marcus Hepper, pop in. Marcus has been helping me with my carving a little bit, just to give me ideas or tips and tricks, and Andy's been a support since I first met him at my second exhibition. But he's come in and sort of looked at the work and just given me someone to talk to about it. And and he's a previous artist that's been through McCahon Residency, so just drawing on some of his experience or his thoughts about how he found it, and sort of taking that on board, or having that preloaded, so I knew that things were coming up as I was going along. So
it's
been really useful.
That's so good, having that support. Yeah, well, you've done an incredible job, and you've got how many weeks left? 3 or 4?
I've got, it's under 3 now. I've been doing the countdown. I think I'm down to maybe 18 or 19 days left.
Wow. Yeah. And then where do you go from here?
So after here, back home to do an exhale, I guess, is probably part of it, and just maybe consolidate some of the notes or different things that I've done. But I've got a solo show coming up in Edinburgh with Scott Lowry Gallery there in July. So before too long, I'll start making for that. I've got a show in October at PG Gallery 192 in Christchurch. So I'll start working with that, and that show is alongside Andy Lalesiwa. We take a gallery each, so looking forward to that. And then the last bit of work this year will be towards curating a show at the Mangere Arts Centre with 9 Cook Island artists. So I'll be making some work for that, and I guess chasing chickens to try and just pull all that together. And I guess that's the focus. And I think that'll be a nice ending to the year, just to consolidate everything that I've learnt in this residency and post-residency.
What an incredible opportunity, which you've made the most of. And I think you've created a very, like I said, important work that will go on in New Zealand history.
It would be nice to think that it lived beyond me, but probably more than likely after this, it's going to be under the stairs until it goes somewhere.
No way. No, absolutely not. And I'm sure everyone who sees this work will agree that it's got big legs. Not sure if that's a very arty phrase, but
thank you for the praise for the work. But like I said, it comes through me, not from me. So, but I think it's a work that's universal. I had a lady come through here last week from LA. She'd been impacted by the fires, and she had a little bit of a tear as well, because she said it reminds her of what she'd been through. So I think it's a universal work that touches people at different levels.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sefton. It's, like I said, been such an honour to be here with you in this incredible environment, and to see your work and see part of your work in process, and to see some of your sort of experiments and tools and, all the work around you in the studio. So it's been, such a beautiful morning. Thank you very, very much for having me and for coming back on the podcast.
I appreciate you taking the time to come out here to share time with Kirsten and myself and the work. And I truly support everything you do, and I think what you're doing is important. It's a snapshot of what's happening in the New Zealand eco art sphere. I appreciate everything you do.